the United Left Alliance has made it very clear we would not pay this loan back and wouldn't accept it and burn the bondholders, etc. It is not of our making, so we should not have anything to do with it. There's been a savage cut in our pay packets. As the point's been made, there's less money to spend on our pay packets. We can't go out and buy the bits and pieces down Thomas Street, going into Dunnes Stores or the local shops to buy bits and pieces, because we cannot afford it. 400 small businesses have collapsed in the last month. That's the reality, and it's going to be more over the next month and the next month if this continues. The €8 cut in people's social welfare is having an effect on people's spending power. So the more cuts, the less resources people are going to have to keep the economy going, and it's a downward deflationary situation we're in. And the reality of that means for the drug centres, people supporting people, addicts, resources in the communities, they're all going to be cut more and more and more. And we cannot accept that as communities. We've been bypassed already through the Celtic Tiger years, many in the Dublin 12 area and South Central area bypassed, and now we're facing harsher cuts. We cannot do that. So the only alternative is to burn the bondholders. And just one more point to make very briefly. It's not only the money, it's conditions that the IMF have put towards that. That is privatising all our public services, outsourcing all our public hospitals. There's a whole raft of things, outsourcing our water. Already in the last few days, a tender has gone out to ask businesses how we can privatise our water. So all these conditions are attached to it as well that we don't see, the hidden side of it. And these are the reasons why we have to just cut from that IMF. And the other parties have to explain why they're not doing that.
With a wry smile, I read that when the IMF came in, the majority of Irish people welcomed them. I suppose a reflection of the frustration of the Irish with the government when nobody would loan to this country and they were seen to be our saviour. Having experienced the IMF, for example, in Jamaica, and even more currently, look at the IMF performance in Greece, the question that has been posed is an extremely valid one. We cannot, quote, burn, and I wish people would stop using the word burn, it's a bit like, it's a bit violent. You don't burn the hand that fed you, you negotiate with it. You negotiate, because I see a guard in the body of the hall here. It would be very interesting when there is no funds available to the National Exchequer, where the salaries would be paid for on Garda Síochána and the Irish Army, every civil servant, every public servant, when you, quote, burn, send back the money. Can I say, yes, I'm a big one into negotiations. Prunchis de Rossi in Europe today was in the European Parliament making the very same point. We have common cause with lots of other European countries. We have the Greeks, we have the Spaniards, we have the Portuguese, all countries that are potentially vulnerable to the savagery of the markets. I think Irish diplomacy has been brilliant in the past. We excelled in the United Nations. We excelled throughout the Third World, throughout the First World. We have a phenomenally good experience of negotiations, and I think we must negotiate ourselves out of the present situation. That's why the Labour Party said the first thing we must do is renegotiate, but we must renegotiate in common cause. And I think it would be great if we could have the strength of unity that you've been posing. I would love that, Angela Merkel and the Christian Democrats who are linked in with the Fine Gael party would sign up with us as Social Democrats and the Social Democratic movement. You need a minimum of 5% growth in this country, a minimum of 5% to stay afloat. At the moment, we are at 0.5 with the austerity measures. I think there is common cause that could be made right across the political divide with a view to saying, look, the game is up. The New York Times is quite right in its editorial. We cannot afford and we cannot sustain the levels of payments. And because there is, and just to conclude, and there is a common cause in Europe when they realise, and when we enter into the debate about the euro and our role and the debilitating role if Ireland was to completely collapse.
I suppose the IMF, the one experience we can point to is the IMF in the UK in 1976 when the UK came out after 3 years. So in fact it is possible there is life after the IMF. I suppose the question that was posed is whether people would look at the agreement with an open mind. And certainly I'm willing to look at it with an open mind. But that being said, for whatever incoming government there is, the onus for responsibility for taking decisions will fall to that government. So I certainly think there can be a period of open discussion, but then I think decisions will need to be taken on certain broad principles. And I think they are important decisions, and they are pan-European. I think Eric is correct there. I think that the issues that we're seeing are issues that are going to arise in other countries, and they're issues of equity and they're issues of sustainability. We cannot enter into agreements that we cannot sustain. I mean, we're crystal clear on that. We need to know what the price is. Are we going to agree that price? Equally, is it better to have short, sharp pain, which just say is Latvia experience? If you tell the IMF to get lost, well, that's fine. Public servants' pay reduces by 50% overnight. They will recover. There is life after that. The Latvian government, they did that, got re-elected, which is an amazing political feat. But that is the other road that's looking at going down. So we're trying to, take everything in the balance. But I certainly am willing to participate openly in any discussions. I'm sure Fine Gael would. But there will come a period very shortly after that where any government will have to be taking decisions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Rory. Now, this lady has been waiting very patiently here.